Hey, what is going on, everybody? How are you all doing today? I hope you all are having a wonderful and fantastic day today, and if not, hopefully you all will have a better tomorrow. So, the monthly Q&A for September is here. You have asked your questions, and here's the time that I answer them. And for those of you who may not know, I do a Q&A once a month, so if you have any questions you would like for me to answer, whether it is about myself, whether it is about RWBY, or any kind of news or pop culture or anime or anything of that sort, just ask it down below and I will answer it in next month's Q&A. And remember, if I don't get to your question this month, just let me know and I will go back over it and I will most definitely add it within the next Q&A. So, like I said, if I don't see it, I apologize in advance and I will do my best to make sure that I answer it next Q&A. So, just wanted to let everybody know for those who may be new here. Anyways, so let's go ahead and let's get into the Q&A. So, the first question is from Christopher Capers Jones, and he asked, what are your thoughts on RWBY after the fall, and whether or not you have a copy of the book, or are you going to review it at a later point? I do eventually plan to review this book. It'll be a bit of time, though, but yes, I have read it, and I do have it, so I will definitely get to it. I am currently working on an Atom rewrite right now, which I do plan to get out sometime next month. So whenever I do get closer to getting it out, I will let you know. But the update on it is the rewrite is coming along well. So it's about, I want to say, 60% done. So I'm getting closer to getting it done. I will let everyone know whenever I get closer to that. But in the meantime, while I'm trying to work on that, I'm trying to get new stuff out there as well. I'm also trying to do other RWBY related videos as well. So I'm trying to do a mixture of a lot of things. But yeah, I do eventually plan to review that book. More than likely, when I do, I will probably review it around the time of Volume 7. So when I do plan to review it, it'll probably be around that time. And also, I will be able to go over the book again because I do like to go over things more than one time. Typically, whenever I go over things the first time, it's usually just like okay, well, I read it, this is what I thought, or I watched it, this is what I thought. But I do like to analyze and go over things more than one time before I review or talk about something because it allows me to have a more established and concrete opinion on it than just a first viewing. And then also, the more I watch something or read something, the more I'll catch things that I may have missed the first time. So by the time I typically review or talk about something like that, I usually like to have a very firm and established opinion, not just going off one showing. But that's just my opinion. But expect to see that review during Volume 7, because during the time that it's going on, I will try to review that book then. So be sure to look out for it then. Alright, so moving on to the next question. Julian R. asks, The Eternals has a good cast, like Richard Madden, Angelina Jolie, Gemma Chan, Salma Hayek, Kit Harington, and Brian Tyree Henry. What are your thoughts on those casts? Well, it's not so much the cast to me when it comes to a movie, it's more so the writing of the movie itself. If a movie is not good, then I have a problem there. I mean, you could have great cast, which, yeah, that does sound like a pretty good cast, don't get me wrong. It's just more so to me the story. If the story is not good, then I have a problem. I mean, when I look at it, in game, it was alright. I had some problems with that movie, but, I mean, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen. It wasn't bad by any means. It's just, there were a couple of things here and there that I think, well, the movie could have done without, or the movie could have done better, but it was still okay. I felt that Infinity War was a stronger movie, personally, but Endgame was alright. Like I said, there were just a couple of things here and there I didn't like, but, Endgame was the ending to everything up to this point, if you think about it. I mean, kind of going further, I don't know. I mean, maybe things could be alright, but, with Thor Love and Thunder, I already have issues with the idea of that movie. I mean, it could still be good for all I know. But it does bring up some concerns for me personally. Also, Spider-Man was confirmed to be back in the MCU again. Sony and Disney this last week did come up with an agreement. So Spider-Man's going to come back. I mean, still, we'll just have to see where they go with it, but Spider-Man is probably going to be the poster child of Marvel for the MCU at this point, which I don't doubt it. I mean, look at how popular Spider-Man is even to this very day. But, he'll probably be the poster child moving forward. and we'll just have to see where they decide to go with the MCU. But in terms of the cast, I mean, yeah, it sounds pretty good. It's just more so where I'm concerned is the writing. But yeah, I mean, the cast is good. I don't have any issues really with the cast. It's just more so the writing is what I'm concerned about. But, that's just my take on it. Inigo asks, what are your thoughts on pure evil villains? So, that's a pretty interesting question, because when it comes down to pure evil villains, here's the thing. If a character is evil for the sake of being evil, I can be okay with that if, and this is a big if they have excellent characteristics. Like, say, for example, say you come up with a villain, and let's say the villain is just evil for the sake of being evil. Okay, so you have that established. They're just evil for evil's sake. But say they have a dynamic personality. Say that they are very interesting with who they are, personality-wise, then I actually won't hate them, because the thing that would probably reel me in the most would be just who they are as a character. Because, like I said, if they have a characteristic that can reel a person in, despite the fact that their whole ambition is just to be evil for the sake of being evil, if they have an interesting characteristic, then that's not bad. I don't hate that. But if let's give you an example. If it's like Cinder, and how they have made her just basically after Volume 4 onward, made her be evil for the sake of power, and that's it. There's no depth to the writing. She's just evil for evil's sake. Then no, I don't think that's good, because, yeah, personally, people are going to dislike this opinion, but I do like Cinder as a villain. But I don't like her writing, though, because I think that her writing could be so much more. I think there's so much more for the potential of the character, but I just don't think the writers care enough. And when that happens, well, your character falls apart. And then they're just known to be a one-dimensional character, and people like characters with depth. And if you create a villain that has depth, and, like I said, if they're just evil for the sake of evil, as long as they have interesting characteristics that people like, like maybe little quirks in their characteristics of them doing a certain thing, or, whatever, they could be good still. But if the villain is just known for being evil, and they don't have any characteristics that make them stand out other than, oh, I'm evil for the sake of evil, then, yeah, they're not going to be interesting, and that's all they're going to be known for. And then that's just a boring and bland character, and people tend to dislike that because, like I said, they're boring and bland, and they don't have anything that makes them different from the sake of their ambition of being evil. But if they're written with good characteristics that people can enjoy, then yeah, people won't really care so much about them being evil for the sake of being evil, and they'll look at them more as that character had a pretty good personality, or that character was pretty good at plotting and scheming, or, they'll pick out whatever the characteristic is, and that is what will make them like the character more, because that's what the defining part of the character was that made them stand out in their eyes. So, if a character's evil for the sake of being evil, as long as they're written well within their own personality or things that make them stand out from just the fact of them being evil, then yeah, they can still be good. But not so much if they're just evil and then they're one-dimensional. People don't really care for that, because there's nothing more other than scraping through the evil part of it, then you just don't have anything else for a character. So, that's my thoughts on it. But yeah, very interesting question for sure. So, moving on to the next question. Julian R. asks, what are your thoughts on Angelina Jolie being in the MCU? I mean, that's cool. I don't have anything against it. I mean, I'm not really surprised, though, considering that, you've had big names before. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. is a big name in himself, So, personally, I'm not surprised that they would continue to get big celebrities that have been known for other big roles in other movies, that are very well-known actors and actresses, so I wouldn't be surprised at that they continue to do that, and I'm not surprised that they did this with Angelina Jolie and introducing her to the MCU. So, I hope that it all goes well for her, and congratulations, Angelina Jolie, on making the MCU. That's really the best I can say, and that I hope the best for her, and that she does well when she performs. I mean, that's really all I can say. So, moving on to the next question. Jaren Lemon asks, I know I'm late, but hear me out. What if God created natural pinkettes, people with pink hair? Now, that's pretty interesting for a question. I wonder how rare it would be. I mean, you think about it, you have your blondes, you have your dirty blondes, you have your brunettes, you have black hair, you have your redheads, which I fall into that category. So I wonder what the percentage of pink hair would be if it was a natural hair color. Because redheads fall under, I think it was like 2% of the world's population. So I wonder what the percentage would be if pink was a natural hair color. That would be something that would be kind of interesting to know. But I mean, it's a hair color. I mean, it would be interesting to see that as a natural hair color for people, but it's something. But yeah, I mean, that would be kind of interesting if there were people that actually had natural pink hair. I mean, that would be certainly something very rare today if somebody actually was naturally born as a pinkette, with pink hair. I mean, that would be so out of the ordinary because, you don't see that. And I think people would be like, "Did you dye your hair?" And it's like, "Oh, no, that's natural." People are like, "Oh, wow." It'd be like, "Huh, well, that's normal. Wow, that's interesting." But if pink was added to the spectrum, I mean, that would be different because there aren't people with natural hair color of pink, so there is that. I did know somebody one time though that bleached their hair and their hair was literally blue. They didn't even try to make it blue. Their hair was blue for like a month. I remember that. That was a very interesting thing. They couldn't do anything about it, and they just had to wait for the blue to just go out of their hair, to get washed out and everything. I do remember that, but I mean, that wasn't natural though, but you get my point. So, yeah, I mean, it would be something. It'd be different, considering that it's not a natural hair color, so it would be something else. But anyways, so moving forward to the next question. The next question is from Ashire MGTOW, and they ask, any favorite Star Wars characters? Can be canon and legends. Mine is Darth Revan or just Revan. Now thinking what he'd be like in RWBY. That is actually a good question. I mean, there are many characters I have that are many favorites of mine from Star Wars. I mean, I am a Star Wars fan. I've read the books, well, that aren't canon anymore, of course, because, Disney. Thanks, Disney. But, yeah, I will agree with you. Revan is actually one of my favorites. I really love his whole design. And not only that, but his character was just fantastic in Knights of the Old Republic. I mean, I liked Revan. Great character for certain. I also have to say I like Darth Bane. He was the one who founded the Rule of Two. I really liked him and his whole plan of everything that he was going to go through. I enjoyed his character. I thought he was great. I also like General Grievous. I really enjoyed his character. I thought that he was great. More so in the 2003 Clone Wars, because the 2008 one, they just made him like a joke whenever he was supposed to be a very serious character. But, that's the one thing I have to say about Dave Filoni I'd give him criticism on is the notorious Jedi killer, the one that was very, very well feared. They kind of just made him a joke. And that's the one thing I would critique Dave Filoni on if I had to say anything. But yeah, Grievous is awesome. If you read the books or comics that Grievous is in, he is fantastic. I mean, considering that he had the ability to copy any style that he fought against immediately, as if he was a master of it too, was insane. The comic when he fights Mace Windu was great. I did like that one. That was really good. But, looking at it, yeah, Grievous is one of my favorites, especially his strategies. I really enjoyed those too. Another character I really like is Darth Vader. I mean, that's a big fan favorite for many people, myself included. I really understand Darth Vader, and I enjoy his character. Um, Another one I would say I like is Palpatine, just because I love how he schemed everything and planned it all out. And, he manipulated others to get to where he was. It was fantastic to see how well Palpatine was. And, if you go by the Legends idea about how he was trying to actually kill off the Jedi to prepare for the Wu Zhong Vong, I thought that was just fantastic to add to the whole lore to what Palpatine was actually doing. I thought that was interesting as well because the Wu Zhong Vong were extremely terrifying. And, I mean, if you've read the expanded universe, if you've read the Legends books about the Wu Zhong Vong, oh man, those things were terrifying creatures. But yeah, I mean, Palpatine was a genius. I really enjoyed his character as well. So I don't know. It's hard for me to say. I'd probably have to say maybe Darth Bane or Palpatine were probably my overall favorite characters. Then again, I'm more of a Sith fan than I am a Jedi fan. But, I also like Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's one of my favorite characters. I mean, personally, Obi-Wan Kenobi definitely was the best part, in my opinion, of the prequels. I mean, yeah, prequels have some issues with them. But, I don't hate the prequels. But if I had to say anything, Obi-Wan Kenobi was probably the best part, in my opinion, of the prequels. But, that's just my opinion. I'd say it was him and Palpatine because I really enjoyed Palpatine also. Moving on to the next question. The next question is by Inigo. And he states, I recommend Daredevil. The other Netflix Marvel shows are alright, I guess, but the one that carried them was absolutely Daredevil. The first season is great. The second season dips a bit in quality, but is still pretty good. The third season is amazing. Also, Lucifer is pretty good. I like it. Also, Q&A, have you played Hollow Knight? If yes, what did you think about it? If not, I recommend it. It's a Metroidvania made by lesser known Australian indie developers, and it is effing awesome. So, when it comes to Daredevil, yeah, I have heard great things about it. I do need to check it out. So, I'll definitely do that. I've also heard good things about Lucifer. So, yeah, I do appreciate the recommendations. I'll check them both out. And, whenever I do, I'll let you know what I think. No, I actually haven't played Hollow Knight. I do need to do that. I've heard great things about it also. And, I do like those kind of style games that are like Metroid or, Castlevania, things of that sort. I do like the old stuff. I mean, I like new stuff too, but, I do like older games like that. So that sounds actually really cool. And I would definitely love to give that a shot. So yeah, I'll definitely check it out. And you also stated that you think I should also get the DLC whenever I try it. So yeah, I will definitely give it a shot and let you know what I think of it whenever I get the chance to play it. So yeah, that'd be great. But yeah, thank you for the recommendations. I'll definitely give it a shot. The next question is by Ashire MGTOW, and Ashire asks, any favorite poems or short stories by Edgar Allan Poe? The Raven is my favorite poem. Yes, The Raven is actually my favorite. I like that one, and I also like Alone. That is another poem I really enjoy. I definitely agree, though. Raven is my favorite out of all of the poems that he ever did, and I'd say Alone is my second favorite for certain, because I really relate to the poem Alone, and I really enjoy it a lot. Ashire then continued to ask, what would you think of RWBY if we put Doom in it? That would make it interesting. Oh, yeah, characters would be dead. There would be a lot of death and destruction if you mix Doom with RWBY. Oh man, just imagining for one, RWBY just even going to Mars first off. Dust wouldn't work because dust only works within Remnant as stated within the series itself. So there's that. So if you take dust outside of Remnant, it doesn't even work. And then of course a lot of characters would have to fight monsters from Doom. Man, could you imagine RWBY fighting some monsters from Doom? Oh man, could you imagine RWBY being the character that is literally Doom guy? Could you imagine that? That would be funny. Just have her have like a Gatling gun or something, trying to shoot through these monsters. Oh man, maybe using her semblance to speed around while shooting them. That would actually be hilarious. I think that would be great. That sounds like a hilarious yet awesome and bloody gory fan fiction. Man, okay, you know what? Now I probably am just thinking of an awesome idea of fan fiction there. That sounds great, actually. I like your idea here. That's awesome. Ashire then goes on to state, I think season 13 was the best ending for RWB. The feels should have stopped there instead of slowly killing it in 15, 16, and 17. Yeah, I agree. I think the last best season they had was season 10. That's a personal opinion though, but after that, I think RBB started to go downhill. But yeah, I think after 13, that's when they just killed it. I mean, before then, yeah, I didn't think it was as good after 10, but I think that where they really just shot it in the foot was, after 13. 13 could have been the best way to end it. But you know how it works. Companies got to milk it all for what it's worth, right? But, you know, sadly, that's what happens. But moving forward, don't judge me. 188 asks, Hey Draco, I was wondering your opinion on a little Ruby theory of mine. It's about Salem's Council. I was thinking of how there's two empty seats open when the villains were introduced. I like to think that the seats belong to characters that haven't been introduced. One holding the title of the strongest in Salem's faction, I'm thinking of a way that it could add an interesting dynamic to the villains and what happens behind closed doors. I think about it and what would happen if this did happen. This also made me think about how the character holding title of strongest affects everyone else in the council. Do they respect them or envy them? Just a thought. So that's an interesting theory. A lot of people have thought that there could be two other villains that could be working alongside Salem since there were two empty chairs. And, it does make you wonder, is there the possibility? I mean, where could they be at the time being? Could they be doing? In terms of strongest, the only thing I could imagine is that one of them would probably have to be a maiden. That'd probably have to be the strongest one. Um, because, you have Cinder who, let's be real, if you don't count Salem, she is the strongest of the villains that we know of so far. I mean, yeah, they could flip the script and there could be something about Watts or Tyrion that we don't know. But in terms of everybody we've seen, excluding Salem, so we're chopping her off, we're not saying Salem, but excluding Salem, yeah, Cinder's the strongest one of them. Unless they have another maiden that is more experienced. That's the only way I could really see somebody being the strongest, unless there's a semblance that, I don't know, makes them match the level or double the level of strength of the person they're fighting, which would be extremely overpowered, which could make sense as to why they would then be called the strongest. And I think that the other characters would probably envy them because, you look at Cinder, she became stronger than Watts, Tyrion, and Hazel when you think about it. And, they make fun of her. They look down on her because, for one, they say that she's younger than them. And, they make fun of her for saying, oh, how could you have lost to a Silver Eyed Warrior? Even though Salem then proceeds to state that, hey, the Silver Eyes are, super effective against anyone that has maiden powers. So, there's that. But, when you think about it, yeah, Cinder thus far, of anybody that's following Salem, yeah, Cinder's the strongest one, but there could be somebody that could have like a semblance or could also be a maiden for all we know. So there's that. There's also the fact that the Winter Maiden still hasn't been revealed. I mean, that's probably going to be the next maiden. I mean, that and the Summer Maiden. But the Winter Maiden's probably going to be the one in Atlas. I mean, why wouldn't they? I mean, that's the northern area. So who knows? Who knows what we'll see? I mean, there could be a pretty decent amount of what we could see. And I speculate myself that there could be two other villains, especially considering that with the board game, Miles and Carrie, don't take them too seriously, did state that there was another villain that was exclusively made for the board game. And then again, you have Dr. Morleau, who was actually the antagonist who was canon to Ruby Eclipse. So, yeah, no, you have a good point there. And for everyone who speculates on this as well, it's possible. So, there's that. So, yeah, so I think you have a very good speculation going on there. And that's something I do agree with you on. I've speculated that myself. So, yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. So, let's move on to the next question. The next question is by Julian R. Who's your least favorite character in RWBY? Mine is Yang because the way she was written in volumes 4 through 6, it's like what if Thor was handled poorly in Endgame, but in game he got better character development. Yang acts like a different character for no reason. I know PTSD makes people depressed, but it's executed poorly. Yes, I agree, 100%. Yang, honestly, I think about it, Yang might actually be my least favorite. It's either her or volumes 4 through 6 Jean, because I did not like Jean after volume 3. Like, I liked him during volumes 1 through 3. There wasn't a problem with Jean for me there, but in terms of the way they tried to write him after that, I had many issues with, especially in volume 5, his speech to Cinder. That's what made me dislike him, was his speech to Cinder. But Yang just drastically changed from who she was. It's like she lost characteristics. PTSD is a very hard thing for people to deal with, but it's not going to take away the core elements of who you are as a person. I mean, yes, it will add a lot of stress. Yes, it will add anxiety. Yes, it will really affect you terribly. It does. It really does. But you have to understand what makes you who you are isn't gonna completely and entirely change. And there are people who deal with these sort of problems daily. And, there are some people who are struggling on the inside, but they just hold themselves back from letting people know what they're struggling from sometimes. Now, that's true. That actually does happen. I myself have gone through some very serious issues, and I would put on what is known as an emotional mask, where you hide how you're really feeling. And, I wouldn't let anybody know what my problems were. I would very well hide it. And, that didn't stop me from being myself, though. But at the same time, I would have very terrible inner struggles. And, PTSD, it creates anxiety as well. I mean, you can have terrible anxiety from PTSD, and PTSD isn't something just somebody gets over. Sometimes people live with PTSD for the rest of their lives, and PTSD, you can get past it, yes, but it's very hard to do. It's not like, oh look, I got a mechanical arm like Yang did, and then she's better. It doesn't work that way. PTSD is something that can last with someone for their entire life, and that's true. And I don't think the writers understood how PTSD worked. And, I would have at least expected a PTSD moment from Yang during the Atom fight. But no, we didn't even get that. And I think that was a horrible moment. And that was just bad on the writers' part. They could have done so much more with that. They could have developed Yang through that. And instead, they just tried to make her act like she was, fine, as if she had no problems. And yeah, I had issues with that. And even now, I still have issues with that. But Yang kind of acts snooty now. She acts like she has to impress everybody. And, the old Yang was cool. I mean, the old Yang was kind of like the party girl, but, she was actually fun. She had fun characteristics. She was interesting back then. Now, it's just gloom and doom with Yang. I don't really see any positives out of what Yang has become now. I mean, I feel like they just kind of stripped her of her personality, and she's just this wannabe edgelord that failed at it, you know? But I'm just saying, that's my point of view of what Yang is now. I don't like Yang right now. I don't. And I liked her at one time. I really don't anymore. And that's on the writers. The writers wrote her terribly. And the big thing is, Yang's character change, it just doesn't feel like it's genuine at all whatsoever. I mean, it just feels like it's forced. I mean, and it doesn't really even seem like she's really gone through development. I mean, she went off on her own mom. It's like she's trying to act like she's tough, but it's not working for Yang. It's not who she is, and I don't like that. You know, it's just I hate it. I don't like what Yang has become. I just feel like she's very, very one-dimensional now, and I don't like Yang now. I really don't. But that's just my personal opinion. So moving on to the next question. Bone Break Lightsaber Crafter asks, bit late for this comment, but gonna ask it for the Q&A and comment section unless it doesn't get seen. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm checking these. I always try to make sure. I always check my comment section. Since RWBY is the biggest moneymaker that Rooster Teeth has and no replacement is service for it, like Genlock was supposed to be. Heh, yeah, good joke, right? So much for how Genlock turned out for them. But anyways, do you think that Rooster Teeth somehow comes out on top of this? Will they eventually end RWBY or continue to drag it out like SpongeBob or One Closer to Home, Red versus Blue? Well, with the news that I covered this week, the big thing is Jordan Levin has taken over the company now. He is the one who's CEO because Matt Hullum was demoted. Him and Bernie Burns were both demoted in their roles, and a few other demotions occurred as well. The big thing is that Jordan Levin, you have to understand, this guy, he doesn't have any animation experience whatsoever. I mean, yeah, so he was one of the youngest CEOs when he was 23. Now, that was back in, 2003? A long time ago. So, you now look at it, and since he did teen comedies, okay, so we're talking things like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which, that's not a bad series. I do like that series. But Dawson's Creek. Dawson's Creek. Yeah, it's not looking good for their animation department. And, now that they're trying to shift more of their shows to more live action because of this, because that's probably what they're going to start doing. This is just speculation, they'll probably start doing more live action stuff. And, when it comes to animation, we're probably going to see less and less of it. I hate saying that, but that's true. And it isn't looking good for the old Rooster Teeth at this point because, you know, they've put themselves in the situation. That's the first thing you got to remember. They did this to themselves. But do I think they'll come on top? No. I mean, I'm hearing multiple sources tell me, which they're telling me the same story, that more than likely they're going to gel into Cartoon Network. Their animation studio is going to be a part of Cartoon Network, and that Rooster Teeth is going to probably just merge with Cartoon Network, and that'll be the end of it. It's not looking good for Rooster Teeth. I mean, they are literally in danger of not being a company at all, period. I mean, and now that, Rooster Teeth has literally, you could just say, got neutered by their corporate overlords. Yeah, I mean, Warner Media controls them now. I mean, they've controlled them, but now that they actually have an actual person who was from corporate come and take over their company, it's going to be more corporate affairs now, I would say, if anything at all. And this is why Matt Holm and Bernie Burns are now, their new jobs are going to be going around to basically just say, hey, look, here's my show from my company. I want to pitch it at this network and see if you'll actually start advertising it and showing it. Seeing that that's what their jobs are now, it's not looking good. And in the end, they're probably not going to be a company at all anymore. And that's the thing. They dug their own grave. And you think, when Rooster Teeth couldn't dig a bigger hole, which they always continue to do so, it just gets bigger. I don't think they'll come out on top because they're financially in trouble because of Genlock. Genlock already cost them so much. The Vic situation cost them so much. They're in serious financial trouble. And with AT&T, that owns them, with their new CEO, unlike the old one, the new one is a penny pincher. The new one just grabs a hold of that money and says, no, I'm not going to help you. So they're in danger. And, they had the fans to fall back on, but, had they not insulted the fans, attacked them, and not listened to the criticism, and bent the knee to SJWs, this problem would never have happened. But it did. And because of that, they ended up where they are now. So, do I think Rooster Teeth could make a bounce back? More than likely not. No. The chances are against them rather than for them making a bounce back at this. And I'm not trying to be cruel here. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm being serious. I mean, it's not looking good. It really isn't. And Rooster Teeth is in severe danger of just not being a company at all anymore. Losing everything and then their assets just going to Warner Media. Now, Warner Media may take RWBY and do whatever they want with it at that point because, they have the rights to the property. So that could happen. They could do that. But overall, Rooster Teeth themselves, they're on a time limit at this point, and that clock is ticking. And once it runs out, it'll be over for Rooster Teeth, and they have no one else to blame but themselves. But I'm just saying. But anyways, very good question. Moving on to the next question. This is from Kennard Lang, and he asked, for Q&A, since Rooster Teeth is sinking faster than Arcos, who do you think they should pass RWBY off to? Also, should they remake the series from the beginning or continue where Rooster Teeth left off? Now, this is a very good question. Since Rooster Teeth is literally a sinking ship at this point, it's a good thing to wonder who they should send RWBY off to if Warner Media were to do so. Because, Warner Media, they own Rooster Teeth, which owns RWBY. So they have the full assets to RWBY at this point. I mean, so what Warner Media could do, now, here's what I think. They should send it to an anime studio in Japan, I think, first off. I mean, there are many you could choose from. My number one choice, if it were me, where I would send it, I would say Studio Madhouse because the animation is some of the best. I think it's one of the best studios they could send it to. I really like Studio Madhouse. I mean, if you've ever seen stuff like Hellsing Ultimate, for example, great series, love it. You look at Hunter x Hunter, you look at One Punch Man whenever season 1 was still under Studio Madhouse. You have plenty of good anime that have actually been done very well with the animation from Studio Madhouse. So That's one I would say. Another one could be, I mean, this would be more in the looks department because they have pretty sleek looks. I think A1 Pictures is pretty good at what they do. That's another studio I think that could be really good within the animation department if they were to do it. But that's just my thought. I mean, there's many others, but those are two that are pretty good. Studio Madhouse preferably over A1, but A1's not bad for what it is. I mean, with some of the anime they've done very good animations for them as well, I think. But those are just some options. I mean, I could go on with more options, but I'd say Studio Madhouse would be the number one choice in my opinion. Um, but should RWBY be rebooted or should they continue where it left off? Okay, here's what I'll say. At this point, with everything that's happened with RWBY, let me put it like this. If anything, one of two things is going to happen. RWBY either A, will be finished under Rooster Teeth, but it will be supremely rushed to the max, which would be horrible because you can't rush stuff, obviously. I mean, that's common knowledge. And it never will ever be as good if you rush it rather than, properly think it out and take your time with it. But I mean, I think RWBY should have an ending, but at the same time, I don't think the writers, at least a lot of them, Miles and Carrie, those are two big ones. I don't think they're good for the job. I mean, and they don't listen to criticism. They just throw in whatever they think sounds good, but that doesn't make it good. Just because something sounds good doesn't mean that it is good. So, I mean, there should be an ending to RWBY, but I fear that it would be rushed, and I just feel that it would be very mediocre under Rooster Teeth, and especially with how bad the condition they're under right now. I feel like, yeah, I don't feel like it would be as good considering the direction that Rooster Teeth's taking and how it's gonna fall soon. But who knows? Maybe Volume 7's different. We'll just have to see. But I still have my fears for that too. But you know, I think if anything at this point, if it does go to another studio, let's say it does, right? Let's say Rooster Teeth sinks and falls, and let's say that Warner just decides, hey, look, we're going to send RWBY somewhere else. You might as well reboot it. I mean, at that point, you're not going to have the same writers, and you're going to have totally different voice actors as well. I mean, I think there should still be some of the laws still placed in there. Like, it's kind of like Full Metal Alchemist and then Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Both of them are good in their own respective rights. I think Brotherhood is the superior series, but, it doesn't take away from the original Full Metal. I mean, it doesn't harm the original Full Metal. And, RWBY could be improved upon, and, you won't have some of the dumb writing that Miles and Carrie have thrown in there. And I think it would probably be best if it does get rebooted. I mean, and a lot of people would disagree with that, but at this point, with the condition of Rooster Teeth and everything, it might as well just be rebooted for the better. I mean, and with the writers over there in Japan, whoever they could hire, if they hired great writers, the series could be excellent. I mean, and it could probably be even better than what Rooster Teeth's RWBY is. And that's a possibility. Some people will say, "Oh no, it could never be better." It could be. Don't ever take that out of consideration. And I'll be honest, if we get a better RWBY through a reboot, that would be great. I wouldn't hate that. I wouldn't be against a reboot if it improved the series, if it made the series better than what it was. I wouldn't hate that. But, that's a personal opinion. I mean, I still think that Rooster Teeth should be able to finish RWBY, but, I feel that if anything, more than likely the route that's going to happen is RWBY is probably just going to be rebooted. If if Rooster Teeth sinks and everything, I feel like it's just going to end up being rebooted. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. And like I said, who knows? It could ultimately be for the better. I mean, and it could make a more concrete story, one that's more consistent and abides by the rules that are set out for the world itself, and at the same time, more competent writers, because God knows we need those. And, maybe there could be some really excellent animations through it just, being drawn out. Who knows? And better character development, But who knows? But very good question. But anyways, if you have any questions, leave them down below and I will answer them next month. And if there were any I had forgotten, I will definitely answer them next month as well. I'll be back again on Tuesday. Let me know what you think down below about everything. And thank you for the questions. They're greatly appreciated. But anyways, I hope you all have yourselves a wonderful and fantastic day today. And remember, if today was not a good day, tomorrow could always be better. Take care of yourselves and everyone around you. And have yourselves a good one out there, everybody.